Big fight feel this week, right? Madison Square Garden, you fought there. It adds something to it. But this fight in particular, Israel versus Alex, big fight feel for you as well?
New York City, man. New York City just brings something extra. I mean, we have been at pay-per-views and we have been at some big fights recently, but not many of them feel like the city. Just the lights and the glitz, the glamour. And then to have a guy like Izzy on the headline, the marquee, he draws eyes, and he just it's a different audience. I saw him on the Pivot the other day with Ryan Clark, right? That massive podcast, massive numbers, and Izzy is trending along some of the biggest stars they've had on that podcast. So it's just a big week for the UFC.
Where do you fall into with Israel, right? Because he's a big star, but his last few fights, some have described as boring. Are you in the camp where it's like, hey, Izzy is having boring fights, or his opponents get in there and they freeze up and do not give him the opportunities he needs to put on the show?
Well, here's the thing, right? And I was talking, I don't know who I was talking to about this, but generally you're telling Izzy's opponents as an analyst, I'm like, make it boring. Because when you make it boring, you're in the fight. It's that simple. Yoel Romero made it boring, and he lost 3-2. Robert Whittaker, in the first, there's never been a more clear indicator of how you should fight Israel Adesanya than Robert Whittaker between fight 1 and fight 2. Kelvin Gastelum is the only person that survived when he's been a bit reckless. And then by the end of the 5th round, he was about to get finished. So you can only do so much against Adesanya. You have to be patient. You have to be okay with the crowd not really enjoying the fight, because if you do too much, you end up like Robin fight 1, where he got destroyed in 2 rounds. Then in fight 2, he fought more patient, lost 3-2. Some people thought he won. I wasn't one of those people. Yoel Romero somehow won 2 rounds. They just did nothing. But then if you fight a lot, you end up like Paulo Costa, right? So it's not on Izzy. It's on the opponents, and the smart opponents need to be in the boring fight against Adesanya, because he's too good a counter striker. He won't lead. If you just kind of stay with Izzy, he will just stand with you.
Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, right, and you're Alex Pereira, you think, okay, I've got to take it chill. But I've beaten this guy twice, so why wouldn't I go at him? So what do you think Alex is going to do on Saturday?
He's a counter striker himself, right? So it's going to be who can set the trap. I think with Pereira, what's important for Alex is winning the moments that aren't necessarily big. So just those big explosive moments in kickboxing, that's where Pereira has won. He knocked him out. But if you look over the entirety of those fights, Adesanya had a lot of success, right? So if you're not winning those in-betweens, you're losing the fight. And I think Alex needs to have made some adjustments to win those moments where big things aren't happening, so that Izzy's not just kind of going away with rounds.